Part 1. The galaxy had been quiet for a very long time. The Galactic Council controlled everything. 700 different alien species worked together, making rules and keeping peace. They had been doing this for 12,000 years. When a new species learned to travel faster than light, the Council always sent their best people to welcome them. Captain Vexillar was one of those people. He had 4 arms and purple skin. His species, the Zenthari, were known for being patient and kind. Vexillar had welcomed 62 new species in his 300 years of life. He was good at his job. He knew all the right words to say and all the proper ceremonies to follow. When Earth achieved faster than light travel, Vexillar prepared his ship. He practiced his welcome speech. He studied what little information they had about humans. They seemed like a normal species. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They lived on a blue planet with lots of water. Nothing special, he thought. The harmonious unity his ship entered Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning. Vexillar stood on the bridge wearing his formal robes. His crew had decorated the ship with welcome banners in 40 different languages. They carried gifts from across the galaxy. Everything was ready for a proper first contact. Earth had been ready too, but in a different way. For 5 years, humans had been listening to the Council's communications. They had powerful telescopes and clever computers. They decoded the alien languages. They studied how the Council worked. They learned about the long, slow process of joining the galactic community. Humans decided they did not want to wait that long. The landing site was in Geneva, Switzerland. Vexillar and his team of 12 diplomats stepped off their ship. They expected to meet religious leaders or wise old scholars. That was how most species did things. Instead, they saw 4 humans standing in a straight line. The woman in front was named Helen Price. She had blonde hair pulled back tight. She wore a black suit that looked expensive. Her smile was professional but cold. Behind her stood 3 others. Jack Morrison was tall, with short dark hair and broad shoulders. He stood like a soldier. Lisa Grant wore glasses and looked friendly, but her eyes were sharp and calculating. The last one was Nick Reeves. He smiled easily, but something about him made Vexillar nervous. Helen spoke first, and she spoke in perfect galactic common. Her accent was better than some species who had been in the Council for centuries. "Welcome to Earth, Captain Vexillar. We are happy to meet you. We have prepared a dinner for you and your team. It starts in 40 minutes. Vexillar blinked all 4 of his eyes in confusion. Dinner, right away? This was not how things were done. There were ceremonies that took days. There were blessings and speeches and exchanges of historical records. "We thank you for your kindness," Vexillar said carefully. "However, there are important traditions we must follow first. The ceremony of 7 skies takes 6 hours. Then the exchange of historical records takes another day. After that, we must perform the blessing of new worlds, which requires—" "We know about all of those," Helen interrupted. She did not sound rude, but she also did not sound like someone who planned to wait. "We read your protocols. Very interesting. We prepared digital files with all of Earth's history and culture. Everything is organized and easy to search. You will have access tonight. The dinner is at 6 o'clock. Should we send a car to your hotel?" Ambassador Krillex, a being made of living crystal, flickered with surprise. "But the traditions are important. They have been followed for thousands of years." Jack Morrison stepped forward slightly. "We respect your traditions. We also respect your time. Earth wants to be part of the Council. We can do that efficiently, or we can spend years on ceremonies. We prefer efficient," Lisa Grant added in a softer voice. "We understand this is different from what you expected, but we think you will find our approach refreshing. We are ready to work hard and move fast." Vexillar looked at his team. They all seemed as confused as he felt. In 300 years, he had never met a species that wanted to skip the traditional ceremonies. It was simply not done. But these humans seemed very confident. They had clearly studied the Council. Maybe they knew something he did not. "Very well," Vexillar said slowly. "We will attend your dinner." Helen's smile grew a tiny bit wider. "Excellent. We will send a car at 5:30. Dress as business casual." The first week of meetings was unlike anything Vexillar had experienced. The Council had a standard process for new species. First 20 years of cultural exchange, then 15 years of limited trade. Then, if everything went well, maybe full membership. It was slow and careful, designed to make sure everyone got along. On the second day of meetings, Helen stood up after listening to a 6-hour presentation about this timeline. She had been taking notes on a small computer. When she spoke, her voice was clear and firm. Thank you for that detailed explanation. Earth would like to propose a different timeline. Full trade rights in 6 months. Mutual defense agreement in 1 year. Full council membership in 18 months. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Ambassador Krillix turned bright red, which meant he was shocked. Vexlar felt his hearts beating faster. That is impossible, he said. The verification process alone takes years. We must ensure cultural compatibility. We must review your laws and your ethics. We can speed that up, Jack Morrison said. He slid a thin tablet computer across the table. We created a new verification framework. It cuts the time by 73%. It is also more accurate than your current system. We found a lot of redundant steps in your process. An ambassador from the Fedian Collective made a sound like breaking glass. Our system has worked for thousands of years. You have been in space for barely 10 years. You cannot simply change everything. Lisa Grant leaned forward. Her voice was kind, but her words were sharp. Your system worked when the galaxy was peaceful. But it is not peaceful now, is it? The Drex are attacking colonies at the Rim. The Kelzan are fighting trade wars. Your bureaucracy is so slow that people die waiting for help. She pulled up a holographic display. It showed response times for various crises over the past 100 years. The numbers were bad and getting worse. We are not trying to insult you, Helen said. We want to help. Earth is good at solving problems quickly. We have had to be. Our planet is dangerous. Our history is full of challenges. We learned to adapt or die. Now we want to use those skills to help the Council. Nick Reeves had been quiet until now. He spoke softly, almost casually. The Drex hit 3 colonies last month. 40,000 people died. Your peacekeepers arrived 5 weeks later. Our analysis shows we could have been there in 4 days. How many lives is tradition worth? The question hung in the air like smoke. Nobody wanted to answer it. But everyone knew the answer. Part 2. The negotiations continued for 2 more weeks, and Vexillar began to notice patterns in how the humans worked. They never raised their voices. They always smiled. They followed every rule of diplomatic protocol. But underneath the politeness, they were doing something else entirely. Helen Price ran the negotiations like a military operation. Every morning at exactly 7 o'clock, the human team met in their private conference room. Vexlar had walked past once and seen them through the glass walls. They stood around a table covered with papers and computers. Jack Morrison pointed at maps. Lisa Grant showed graphs and charts. Nick Reeves talked quietly on a phone. Helen listened to everything and gave orders. By 8 o'clock, they were in the main conference room looking fresh and ready. They always knew exactly what they wanted to achieve that day. They never wasted time. The council delegates, by contrast, often spent the first hour of each day just deciding what to discuss. Ambassador Krillix liked to start with a meditation ceremony. Ambassador Gentora from the Thalen Republic insisted on reviewing the previous day's notes in detail. By the time they actually started talking about important things, the humans had been waiting for 2 hours. Helen never complained. She just smiled and took notes. But Vexlar could see the calculation in her eyes. She was learning how the council worked, finding all the weak spots. The mineral extraction proposal showed how humans operated. Earth wanted access to asteroid mining in council space. It was a reasonable request. New species usually asked for this, but the negotiations always took months because every species had concerns about environmental impact, fair distribution, and safety protocols. Gentora blocked the proposal immediately. He gave a long speech about protecting the delicate balance of asteroid ecosystems. He talked about the rights of space-dwelling microorganisms. He quoted council environmental laws that were 8,000 years old. Helen listened politely. She thanked him for his concerns. She promised Earth would follow all environmental regulations. Then she moved on to other topics. 3 days later, Gentora changed his mind completely. He announced that the Thalon Republic would support Earth's mining proposal, with only minor modifications. Everyone was surprised, including Vexillar. Gentora had seemed completely opposed to the idea. That evening, Vexillar invited Gentora for a private drink. The Thalon ambassador looked tired and a bit angry. What happened? Vexillar asked. You were completely against the mining proposal. Gentora's feathers ruffled in agitation. That human Nick Reeves happened. He caught me in the hallway after the session 3 days ago. Very friendly, very casual. He wanted to talk about environmental concerns. That sounds reasonable. It started reasonable. Then he mentioned that Earth had done a detailed analysis of Thalon mining operations in the Kepler sector. He said their techniques caused significant long-term environmental damage, much worse than what Earth was proposing. Vexlar felt a chill. He threatened to reveal this information? No, that is the clever part. He never threatened anything. He just talked about how important transparency is. He mentioned that environmental groups love to receive detailed scientific reports. He noted that Thalon has elections coming up soon. He said all of this with a smile, like we were just having a friendly conversation. But the implication was clear. Very clear. Either I support their proposal, or Earth releases information that could destroy the Thalon mining consortium and probably cost me my position. Gentora drank deeply from his glass. But he also offered something. If we support a modified version of their proposal, Earth will share their mining efficiency data with us. Our operations would become cleaner and more profitable. Vexlar sat back in his chair. This was not how council diplomacy worked. Council species negotiated through careful compromise, taking months or years to find solutions everyone could accept. They did not pressure each other. They did not use leverage, but humans clearly did, and it worked. Over the next few weeks, similar things happened again and again. A species would oppose a human proposal. Then Nick Reeves would have a quiet conversation with someone. Or Lisa Grant would share some interesting research. Or Jack Morrison would mention a training exercise Earth was planning in a specific sector. And suddenly the opposition would fade away. The humans never broke any rules. They never lied. They never actually threatened anyone. They just made it very clear what the consequences of different choices would be. And they always offered something valuable in return for cooperation. Lisa Grant was particularly effective. She was a xenobiologist and expert on alien life. She seemed genuinely interested in every species she met. She asked questions about their biology, their culture, their history. She was so friendly and enthusiastic that people loved talking to her. Lar watched her work with a delegate from the Myrasian hive. The Myrasians were insect-like beings who communicated partly through pheromones. They had been blocking a human proposal about medical technology sharing. Lisa spent 2 hours with the Myrasian delegate just talking. She asked about Myrasian biology. She shared human research on insect communication. She was fascinated by everything the delegate said. By the end of the conversation, the Myrasian was showing Lisa family pictures. Well, family scent markers, but the idea was the same. The next day, the Myrasians withdrew their objection to the medical technology proposal. The delegate explained that Dr. Grant had shared some fascinating research about neural interfaces that could help Myrasian hive ships communicate better. In exchange, the Myrasians were happy to support Earth's proposal. Everyone won. But somehow Earth won more. Jack Morrison was different. He did not do quiet hallway conversations or friendly research sharing. He was direct and factual. When he spoke, he used numbers and data. He talked about efficiency, response times, and strategic positioning. During a discussion about Council security forces, Jack gave a presentation that made everyone uncomfortable. He showed maps of Council space with every military base, patrol route, and response team marked. Then he showed average response times to various types of emergencies. Your coverage has gaps, he said, pointing to large sections of the map. The outer rim colonies are basically undefended. If the Drex attack, help is at least 3 weeks away. That is too slow. Ambassador Krillix flickered in irritation. The Council prioritizes peaceful solutions over military presence. We do not believe in threatening displays of force. I am not talking about threatening anyone, Jack said calmly. I am talking about protecting your own people. 3 weeks is too long. People die in 3 weeks. He pulled up casualty reports from recent Drex attacks. The numbers were devastating. Thousands dead, tens of thousands wounded, all because help arrived too late. Earth has mobile response teams, Jack continued. We can position ships at strategic points throughout Council space. When an attack happens, we can be there in days, not weeks. We are offering to help. You want to put human military forces throughout Council space, Gentora said. That sounds like occupation. It sounds like defense, Helen interjected. And it is voluntary. If a colony does not want our protection, that is their choice. But if they do want it, we can provide it. Better than what they have now, which is nothing. The argument went on for hours, but Vexillar noticed something. The humans never got emotional. They never got defensive. They just kept presenting facts and asking questions. How many people died last year because of slow response times? How much did it cost to maintain the current inefficient system? What was the Council's plan for improving things? Nobody had good answers. That night, Vexillar could not sleep. He kept thinking about those casualty reports. 40,000 beings dead in the last Drex attack alone. The Council had sent peacekeepers eventually, but they arrived after everything was over. They filed reports. They expressed sympathy. They did nothing useful. Meanwhile, Earth was offering real help. Yes, they were aggressive. Yes, they made everyone uncomfortable. But they were also right. The Council's slow, careful approach was failing. People were dying because the Council valued tradition over results. Vexillar realized something troubling. The humans had been on the galactic stage for less than 2 months. They had already identified fundamental problems in the Council's structure that had existed for centuries. And they had solutions ready. That meant they had been planning this for a long time, probably since the first moment they detected Council communications. Humans had studied the galaxy, found its weaknesses and prepared to exploit them. But exploit for what? That was the question Vexillar could not answer. Did humans want power? Territory? Resources? Or did they genuinely want to help? Maybe it was both. Maybe humans saw helping the Council as the best way to gain power. If so, that was smarter than simple conquest, and much more difficult to defend against. Vexillar fell asleep thinking about predators in business suits, and wondering if the galaxy was ready for them. Part 3. The security briefing happened in week 3, and it changed everything. All new species joining the Council had to demonstrate their defensive capabilities. This was usually a simple formality. Most species showed their patrol ships or orbital defense satellites. The Council would nod approvingly and move on. Earth's presentation was different. Jack Morrison stood at the podium in his military uniform. He looked every inch a soldier, standing straight with his hands behind his back. The conference room was packed. Every Council member wanted to see what the humans had brought. "Good morning," Jack said. His voice was calm and professional. "Earth takes security very seriously. We are prepared to contribute significantly to Council defensive operations. Let me show you what we can offer." The first slide showed Earth's public military installations, lunar bases with defensive weapons, orbital platforms around Earth and Mars, a fleet of warships, maybe 300 vessels. They looked impressive for a new species. The Council delegates nodded. This was normal. Adequate defenses for protecting their home system. Then Jack changed the slide and the room went quiet. "Of course, those are just our public installations," Jack said casually. "Our actual military capability is somewhat larger." The next slide showed the real numbers. 3,000 warships, 50,000 fighter craft, 200,000 trained combat pilots. Enough nuclear weapons to destroy a planet several times over. Ambassador Krillix turned bright red and made a sound like shattering crystal. "This is insane. No civilized species maintains such destructive capability." Jack did not seem bothered by the outburst. "We maintain it because we need it. Earth has 17 major nations, and until recently we were all independent. We spent 10,000 years competing with each other. We got very good at warfare. Now we are united, and we are offering to put that experience to work for the Council." "This is barbaric," Gentora said, his feathers standing on end. "The Council does not employ warmongers." Lisa Grant spoke from her seat, her voice gentle but firm. "The Council employs security forces. You just do not call them military. And yes, our capability is extensive, but we are not barbarians. We are survivors from a dangerous world. There is a difference." Jack continued his presentation. He showed weapon systems that made the military advisors in the room visibly uncomfortable. Railguns that could punch through standard Council shielding. Missiles with artificial intelligence that could track and destroy multiple targets. Boarding equipment designed to cut through starship hulls in under 30 seconds. "We have been fighting wars for our entire history," Jack said simply. "We developed strategies and technologies that you have never needed. Our soldiers train in real combat conditions. They know how to fight in zero gravity, in hostile environments, in situations where hesitation means death." He pulled up a comparison chart. On one side, Council peacekeepers. Average training time, 6 months. Combat experience, usually none. Equipment standard but outdated. Response time to emergencies, weeks. On the other side, human forces. Average training time, 2 years. Combat experience, most had served in actual conflicts. Equipment, cutting edge. Response time, days, sometimes hours. I am not saying this to brag, Jack said. I am saying this because the galaxy has threats that your peacekeepers cannot handle. The Drex are not going to stop because you ask them nicely. They respect strength. They understand violence. And right now they do not respect the Council because the Council is weak. The word weak hung in the air like a bomb. Nobody said things like that in council chambers. Diplomacy was about polite language and careful phrasing. Helen Price stood up. Let me be very clear about what Earth is offering. We want a mutual defense pact, not a mercenary contract, not occupation, partnership. We defend you and you defend us. That is what allies do. You expect us to ally with a species that has thousands of weapons of mass destruction? Krillex demanded. We expect you to ally with a species that knows how to use those weapons effectively, Helen replied. The Drex hit 3 colonies last month, killed 40,000 beings. Your peacekeepers arrived 5 weeks after the attacks ended. Our rapid response teams could have been there in 4 days. So my question to you is this. How many lives is your discomfort worth? Nick Reeves added quietly. We have run simulations. If Earth had been able to respond to the last 6 Drex attacks, estimated casualties would have been reduced by approximately 70%. That is over 100,000 lives saved. But please continue debating whether we are too aggressive. The room erupted in argument. Some delegates were outraged at human arrogance. Others were quietly calculating the numbers. 100,000 lives, 70% reduction in casualties. Vexlar sat silently, his 4 hands folded together. He was thinking about the last Drex attack he had witnessed. He had been part of the response team that arrived 5 weeks late. He remembered walking through the destroyed colony, seeing the bodies, hearing the survivors talk about how they had begged for help that never came. The humans were offering help. Real, effective help. Yes, they were dangerous. Yes, they made everyone nervous. But they were also right. The Council's approach was not working. Over the next few days, the debate continued. Earth's military capability became the main topic of every conversation. Some species wanted to reject Earth's application entirely. Others wanted to accept it immediately. The Council was more divided than it had been in centuries. Nick Reeves worked behind the scenes during this time. He had quiet conversations with key delegates. He never threatened anyone. He just shared information. With the Narration delegate, he discussed Earth's medical research. Humans had developed trauma treatment techniques far beyond what the Council used. If the Myrasians supported the Defense Pact, Earth would share that research. With the Fedian Collective, he talked about Earth's sensor technology. Human ships could detect threats from much farther away than Council vessels. That technology could save lives. With smaller species who feared being ignored, Nick emphasized that Earth's proposed rapid response system would protect everyone equally. Rich colonies and poor colonies. Important worlds and remote outposts. Everyone, Lisa Grant focused on the emotional angle. She met with delegates who had lost friends or family to Drex attacks. She listened to their stories. She showed them the simulations that proved human response teams could have saved those lives. She never pushed. She just presented facts and let people draw their own conclusions. Jack Morrison worked with the Council's military advisors. He showed them detailed plans for integrating human forces with existing Council defenses. He demonstrated that humans were not trying to replace Council peacekeepers, but to supplement them, to fill the gaps, to provide the rapid response capability that the Council lacked. Helen Price coordinated everything. She knew exactly what each member of her team was doing at all times. When a delegate seemed ready to support Earth, Helen made sure they had everything they needed to justify that support to their government. When a delegate was uncertain, Helen provided more information. When a delegate was hostile, Helen backed off and let them cool down. It was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance. Every human knew their role. Every action supported the overall strategy. Vexlar found himself both impressed and disturbed. This was not how diplomacy worked in the Council. Council diplomacy was about finding common ground through discussion and compromise. It took time, but it built real consensus. Human diplomacy was about identifying what each party wanted and finding ways to give it to them. It was faster and more efficient. but it also felt manipulative even when the humans were offering genuinely valuable things. On the 7th day of debate, something unexpected happened. The Drex attacked again, a mining colony called Tellura Prime located in the Outer Rim. 12 Drex warships hit the system at dawn. The colony had minimal defenses, just a few automated weapons platforms. The Drex destroyed them in minutes and began bombing the surface. The distress signal reached the Council at 4 in the morning, Galactic Standard Time. Vexlar was awakened by an emergency alert. He rushed to the operations center, still pulling on his uniform. The scene was chaos. Delegates shouted questions. Military advisors pulled up star charts. Everyone was trying to figure out what to do. The nearest Council rapid response team was 6 days away. They could get there in 3 days if they pushed their engines hard. But that risked mechanical failure. The debate began immediately. Was it safe to rush? Should they send one team or wait to assemble a larger force? What if this was a trap? Vexlar listened to the arguments and felt sick. While they debated, people were dying. 2 hours into the emergency session, Helen Price walked into the operations center. She was fully dressed in a dark suit, looking like she had been awake for hours. Behind her came Jack Morrison in his uniform. "We can help," Helen said simply. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. "Earth is not a council member yet," Ambassador Krillek said. "You have no authority to intervene in council space." "People are dying," Jack said flatly. "We have a battle group 3 hours from Tellura Prime. We can be there before the Drex finish their attack." "We can save lives." "Absolutely not," Gentora said. "This would set a terrible precedent. Unauthorized military action in council." Part 4, the debate in the operations center, lasted another 20 minutes. 20 minutes while people died on Tellura Prime. Some delegates argued about protocol. Others worried about precedent. A few simply did not trust humans with military authority in council space. Finally, Vexlar made a decision. He was the senior council representative present. He had the authority to act in emergencies. "Earth is authorized to respond," he said firmly. "We will deal with the political consequences later. Right now, people need help." Helen nodded once. "Thank you, Captain." She turned to Jack. "Send the order." Jack was already on his communication device. "Captain Blake, you are authorized for combat operations. Rules of engagement: disable and capture if possible, destroy if necessary. Save as many lives as you can." 3 hours away, Captain Sarah Blake received the order aboard the UES Defender. She was a 20-year veteran with ice blue eyes and short brown hair. She had fought in 3 major conflicts on Earth and commanded her ship for 5 years. Her crew was the best humanity had to offer. "All hands, battle stations," Sarah announced over the ship-wide communication system. Her voice was calm, but everyone heard the steel underneath. "We have civilians under attack at Tellura Prime. The Drex think they can murder innocent people without consequences. Let us show them why that was a mistake." The Defender was a heavy cruiser designed for extended combat operations. She carried a crew of 800 and enough firepower to level a small moon. With her were 2 more cruisers and 4 destroyers. 7 ships total. The Drex had 12 ships and had been attacking Tellura Prime for almost 3 hours. They were confident, comfortable, focused on destroying the colony below. Their sensors were pointed down at the planet, not out at space. That was their first mistake. Sarah Blake believed in hitting hard and fast. While her ships were still hours away, she launched long-range missiles. 60 missiles, each one guided by an artificial intelligence system that had trained on thousands of combat simulations. The missiles traveled at incredible speed, covering the distance while the Drex were still focused on the planet. By the time Drex sensors detected the incoming weapons, there was no time to react. 3 Drex ships exploded in the first salvo. The remaining 9 ships suddenly realized they were under attack. They turned away from the planet, trying to locate the threat. The human ships came in from 3 different directions. This was standard human combat doctrine. Never give the enemy a single target. Make them split their attention. Create confusion. The Drex tried to form a defensive formation, but they were too slow. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable. Within minutes, the Drex found themselves surrounded, caught in overlapping fields of fire. "Target their command ship," Sarah ordered. "I want prisoners who can answer questions." Her weapons officer, a young man named Alex Carter, worked his controls with practiced efficiency. Railguns locked on target, firing. Magnetic accelerators sent tungsten rounds downrange at a fraction of light speed. The projectiles punched through the Drex command ship's shields like they were not even there. The rounds systematically destroyed weapon systems and engines, leaving the hull intact but the ship helpless. The other Drex vessels tried to fight back, but human combat tactics were unlike anything they had experienced. Council ships fought cautiously, exchanging fire from safe distances. Human ships dove in close, using speed and aggression to overwhelm their opponents. The defender took a hit to her forward shields. The impact shook the ship, but the shields held. Sarah smiled coldly. Return fire. Full spread. A wall of missiles and railgun fire slammed into the Drex vessel that had shot at them. The ship's shields collapsed, and its hull began to break apart. Escape pods started launching as the crew abandoned ship. Let the pods go, Sarah ordered. Focus on the remaining ships. The battle lasted 18 minutes from the first missile launch to the last Drex ship going dark. When it was over, 4 Drex vessels were disabled and captured. 7 were destroyed. 1 managed to escape into hyperspace. Human casualties, 0. Not a single injury. Sarah immediately shifted focus to the planet. Medical teams to the transport ships. Marines, prepare for ground operations. I want aid stations set up within the hour. Down on Tellura Prime, the colonists were in shock. The attack had been devastating. Buildings were destroyed. Fires burned across the capital city. Thousands were wounded and over 4,000 were dead. Then human ships appeared in the sky. Shuttles landed and soldiers in armor poured out. But these soldiers were not there to fight. They carried medical supplies and rescue equipment. Lieutenant Commander Angela Stone led the first medical team. She was a combat medic with 15 years of experience. She had seen war up close and knew how to handle trauma. The colony's main hospital was half collapsed. Angela set up a field hospital in the central square, using portable equipment from the shuttles. Within 20 minutes, she had operating rooms running. Triage by severity, she ordered her team. Critical cases first. If someone can wait, they wait. I know it sounds harsh, but we save more lives this way. Her team moved efficiently through the wounded. Human emergency medicine was brutal but effective. It had been developed in war zones and natural disasters. Speed and efficiency over comfort. A Tellura colonist, a woman named Kess with purple skin and 3 eyes, watched in amazement as the humans worked. Her daughter had been injured in the attack, a piece of shrapnel in her chest. The local doctors had said there was nothing they could do. Angela looked at the injury for 10 seconds. Collapsed lung, arterial bleed. We can fix this. Get her into surgery now. 40 minutes later, Kess's daughter was stable and recovering. The human doctor had worked with calm efficiency, her hands steady even when the situation looked hopeless. How did you do that? Kess asked, tears running down her face. Angela gave her a tired smile. Practice. We have had a lot of practice saving people in bad situations. Your daughter will be fine. She just needs rest. All across the colony, similar scenes played out. Human engineers worked alongside local crews to restore power. Human soldiers helped dig through rubble looking for survivors. Human medics treated anyone who needed help regardless of species. The Council response fleet arrived 4 hours later. Vexlar stood on the bridge of the Harmonious Unity, looking at the tactical display in disbelief. The Drex attack force was gone. Human ships maintained orbit around Tellura Prime. Shuttles moved constantly between the ships and the planet's surface. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the human commander, his communications officer reported. Sarah Blake's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but satisfied. Captain Vexler, good to see you. Tellura Prime is secure. We captured 4 Drex vessels and their crews. They are ready for transfer to Council custody. Final casualty count is 4,300 dead, 9,000 wounded. It would have been much worse if we had not arrived when we did. Vexlar felt a mix of emotions. Relief that the colony was safe, gratitude for human intervention, but also concern about what had just happened. Commander Blake, Earth did not have authorization to conduct military operations in Council space when you engaged the Drex. You were still hours away from Tellura Prime. Sarah's expression hardened slightly. With respect, Captain, I received authorization from my chain of command. People were dying. We were in position to help, so we helped. If the Council wants to file a complaint, I am sure Director Price will be happy to discuss it. But those 70,000... Colonists down there are alive because we did not wait for perfect authorization. She cut the transmission without waiting for a response. Vex. Lar sat down heavily in his command chair. In 300 years of service, he had never seen such a rapid and decisive military response. The humans had identified the threat, deployed forces, won the battle, and begun rescue operations in less than 4 hours. The Council would have still been debating whether to send help. Ambassador Krillix materialized on the Harmonious Unity an hour later. His crystalline form was flickering rapidly, a sign of intense emotion. "This is unacceptable," he said immediately. "Earth violated every protocol. They had no authorization to engage in combat. This sets a dangerous precedent." "They saved 70,000 lives," Vexlar replied quietly. "That is not the point. The point is unauthorized military action. If we allow this, what stops Earth from conducting military operations whenever and wherever they want? What stopped us from saving those lives?" Vexlar asked. "We had 4 hours warning. We spent that time debating. The humans spent it saving people. Which approach was right?" Krillix flickered brighter. "You cannot seriously be defending them." "I'm not defending or condemning. I am asking questions we need to answer. The humans demonstrated something today. They showed us what rapid response actually looks like, and they made us look incompetent by comparison." Down on Tellura Prime, Helen Price walked through the temporary hospital. She stopped to talk with wounded colonists, thanking the human medical teams, observing everything. A young Tellura child approached her. He was maybe 8 years old in human terms, with big eyes and scaled skin. He looked up at Helen and said in broken galactic common, "Thank you for saving my mom." Helen knelt down to his level. Her professional mask slipped for just a moment, and something genuine showed. Part 5, the emergency council session, started at dawn, 3 days after the Tellura Prime incident. Every member species sent representatives. The chamber was packed, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ambassador Krillix spoke first, his crystalline form glowing bright red with anger. "Earth has violated the most fundamental principle of the Galactic Council. They conducted unauthorized military operations in Council space. They killed sentient beings without permission from proper authorities. This cannot be tolerated." Several delegates murmured in agreement. The Fedian collective representative added, "If we allow this behavior, what prevents any species from taking military action whenever they choose? We will descend into chaos." Gentora stood, his feathers ruffled in agitation. "Earth has shown its true nature. They are warmongers. They see violence as the solution to every problem. We should reject their application for membership immediately." Helen Price sat calmly through these accusations. She wore a dark blue suit and had her hair pulled back as always. Her expression was neutral, but Vexlar noticed her eyes. They were calculating, measuring each speaker, planning her response. When the accusations finally stopped, Helen stood. "May I speak?" The chamber fell silent. Even Krillix dimmed his glow slightly, waiting. "You are right," Helen said simply. "Earth did conduct unauthorized military operations. We did kill Drex attackers. We did violate protocol." She paused, letting that sink in. "We also saved 70,000 lives. So the question you need to ask yourselves is this: what matters more? Following rules or saving lives? Rules maintain order," Krillix said. "Without rules, we have chaos. Without action, you have death," Helen replied. "Let me walk you through what happened." At 4 in the morning, the Council received a distress call from Tellura Prime. 12 Drex ships were attacking. Thousands of civilians were dying. What did the Council do? She pulled up a holographic timeline. "You spent 2 hours debating, discussing whether to send help, arguing about which response team to deploy, calculating travel times. Meanwhile, people died. The timeline showed casualty estimates climbing every minute the Council debated. Earth had ships 3 hours away. We asked for authorization. While you continued debating, we prepared to act. Captain Vexlar made the difficult decision to authorize our response. And we saved lives." Lisa Grant stood next to Helen. "Let me share some data. In the past 5 years, the Drex have attacked 17 Council colonies. Average Council response time, 4 weeks. Average casualties per attack, 35,000 beings. If Earth had been able to respond to those attacks, our models show casualty reduction of 72%. That is over 400,000 lives that could have been saved." She let that number hang in the air. 400,000 lives. We are not asking you to abandon your principles, Helen continued. We are asking you to be honest about whether your principles are actually working. The galaxy is becoming more dangerous. The Drex are getting bolder. The Kelsen are expanding aggressively. Pirates operate with impunity in the Outer Rim. And the Council's response is to form committees and hold debates. Nick Reeves spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but clear. I have been reviewing Council records. Do you know how many emergency sessions like this one you have held in the past 10 years? 47. Do you know how many resulted in actual changes to policy or procedure? 3. You are very good at talking, not as good at doing. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates shouted at the human team. Others defended them. The noise level rose until Vexillar had to call for order. Enough, he said firmly. Both sides have made their points. Let us vote on Earth's application for Council membership. Those in favor? The vote was counted electronically. When the results appeared, even Vexillar was surprised. 62% in favor. Earth had achieved membership. Krillex's crystalline form turned nearly black with shock. This is a mistake. We are allowing predators into the Council. They will destroy everything we have built. Or they will save it, a new voice said. Everyone turned. The speaker was Ambassador Lauren of the Narration hive. She was an insect-like being with compound eyes and delicate antennae. She was also one of the oldest and most respected members of the Council. I have served the Council for 160 years, Lauren said, her voice carrying clearly through her translator. In that time, I have watched us become slower, more cautious, more afraid. We hide behind our rules and tell ourselves we are civilized. But civilization that cannot protect its own people is not civilization. It is suicide. She turned to face the human delegation. Earth makes us uncomfortable because they remind us of truths we prefer to forget. Violence exists. Threats exist. Sometimes the only way to stop evil is with force. The humans understand this. They have lived it. And yes, they are predators, but predators serve a purpose. Lauren moved to the center of the chamber. In nature, predators cull the weak and sick. They eliminate threats. They maintain balance. The Council has tried to be a herd of peaceful grazers, and we have nearly been destroyed by wolves. Perhaps we need predators of our own. The chamber was silent. Lauren was known for careful, measured speech. Hearing her speak so directly was shocking. I vote in favor of Earth's membership, Lauren said. Not because I trust them completely, but because I trust them more than I trust our current system. They saved Tellura Prime. How many colonies have we failed to save? The vote was final. Earth was now a full member of the Galactic Council. Helen Price gave the acceptance speech. She kept it short and direct. The Council honors us with this trust. Earth pledges to serve the galactic community with integrity, strength, and dedication. We bring our expertise in rapid response, strategic thinking, and combat operations. But we also bring something else. The understanding that sometimes the right choice is not the comfortable choice. She looked directly at the assembled delegates. We are predators. We evolved to hunt, to compete, to fight. We make you uncomfortable, and we probably always will. But we also evolved to protect our pack, to work in teams, to sacrifice for the group. You are our pack now, and predators protect their own. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of activity. True to their word, the humans immediately began implementing changes to Council operations. Jack Morrison worked with Council military forces, creating integrated rapid response teams. Human ships were positioned at strategic points throughout Council space. When threats appeared, response times dropped from weeks to days, then from days to hours. Lisa Grant led a medical initiative, sharing human trauma treatment techniques with Council doctors. Survival rates for attack victims increased by 40% within the first month. Nick Reeves worked behind the scenes, streamlining bureaucratic processes. He identified redundancies and inefficiencies that had existed for centuries. When officials resisted changes, Nick had quiet conversations about the benefits of efficiency. Resistance usually faded quickly. Helen Price coordinated everything, managing the integration of human systems with Council operations. She worked 18-hour days, meeting with delegates, solving problems, and making sure Earth's promises became reality. The Drex tested the new system twice. Both times, human-led rapid response teams arrived before significant damage could be done. The Drex casualties were severe. After the second defeat, Drex raids dropped by 70%. Apparently, predators understood strength. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some species still viewed humans with suspicion. They worried about Earth's growing influence. They questioned whether efficiency was worth the cost of losing their careful, deliberate approach. But the results were undeniable. Response times improved. Casualties decreased. Pirates found the Outer Rim much less welcoming when human patrol ships showed up. The Council was functioning better than it had in centuries. Vexlar watched these changes with mixed feelings. Part of him was impressed by human efficiency and dedication. They had delivered on every promise they made. The galaxy was genuinely safer with humans in the Council, but another part of him worried about what would happen next. Humans had integrated themselves into Council operations so thoroughly that removing them would be nearly impossible. They had made themselves essential. Was that strategy or genuine service? Probably both. Humans seemed capable of pursuing multiple goals simultaneously. 6 months after Earth joined the Council, Vexlar received an invitation to dinner from Helen Price. He accepted, curious about what she wanted. They met at a restaurant on the Council station. Helen arrived exactly on time, wearing her usual professional suit. They ordered food and made small talk about recent events. Then Helen got to the point. "You were our biggest skeptic when we arrived," she said. "Now you are one of our strongest supporters. What changed?" Vexlar considered the question. "Results changed my mind. You promised to help and you have helped. The galaxy is safer because of Earth, but you still do not completely trust us." "No," Vexlar admitted. "I do not. You are too efficient, too strategic, too good at getting what you want. It makes me nervous," Helen smiled slightly. "That is fair. Let me be honest with you, Captain. Earth does have strategic goals. We want influence in the Council. We want access to galactic resources and technology. We want to position..." Part 6. 3 years passed, and the galaxy transformed in ways nobody had predicted. Earth's influence spread through the Council like water soaking into dry ground. It happened gradually, quietly, but thoroughly. Captain Sarah Blake was promoted to Admiral and given command of the Rapid Response Fleet. She now controlled 200 ships stationed throughout Council space, ready to respond to threats within hours. The fleet included vessels from 17 different species, all training together and learning human combat doctrine. The results spoke for themselves. Drex attacks had dropped by 85%. The few raids that did occur were stopped quickly with minimal casualties. Pirates who had operated freely for decades suddenly found themselves hunted by coordinated patrols. The Outer Rim colonies, which had lived in constant fear, now felt safe for the first time in generations. But the military changes were just the beginning. The real transformation was happening in how the Council operated. Lisa Grant had become the Council's chief medical officer. She had introduced human emergency medicine techniques across hundreds of worlds. Council hospitals now operated with human-style triage systems. Trauma survival rates had increased by 60%. Diseases that had plagued certain species for centuries were being cured with new treatments developed through human Council collaboration. Nick Reeves had disappeared from public view, but his influence was everywhere. Council bureaucracy, once famous for taking years to make decisions, now moved at a pace that would have seemed impossible before Earth arrived. Someone had quietly reorganized how information flowed through Council systems. Someone had identified and eliminated thousands of redundant procedures. Nobody was quite sure who was responsible, but everyone knew Nick Reeves was involved somehow. Helen Price had become Earth's permanent ambassador to the Council. She sat on the High Council, the small group of senior ambassadors who guided policy. Her voice carried weight that went far beyond Earth's official status. When Helen spoke, people listened. Not everyone was happy about these changes. There was a growing movement among more traditional species who felt the Council was losing its identity. They argued that human influence was too strong, that the Council was becoming a military organization instead of a diplomatic one. Their leader was Ambassador Krillex. His opposition to Earth had only grown stronger over the years. He gave speeches about preserving Council traditions. He organized protests against what he called the militarization of the Council. He lobbied constantly to limit Earth's authority. Vexlar found himself caught in the middle. He could not deny that the Council was functioning better. Response times were faster. Fewer people died in attacks. The bureaucracy actually worked. But he also understood Krillex's concerns. The Council was changing, and not everyone agreed the changes were good. The tension came to a head during a High Council session in the third year after Earth's admission. The topic was the proposed expansion of the Rapid Response Fleet. Admiral Blake wanted to double the fleet size and establish permanent bases in the Outer Rim. Krillex stood to speak, his crystalline form glowing bright red. Enough is enough. For 3 years, we have allowed Earth to reshape the Council in their image. We have militarized our response to threats. We have prioritized efficiency over wisdom. We have abandoned traditions that served us well for thousands of years. Where does it end? He turned to face Helen directly. You promised to serve the Council, Ambassador Price, but I see Earth serving itself. You have positioned your people in key roles throughout our government. You control our military. You influence our medical systems. You have even restructured our bureaucracy. This is not partnership. This is conquest by integration. The chamber was silent. Everyone waited to see how Helen would respond. She stood slowly, her expression calm. Ambassador Krillex raises important concerns. Let me address them directly. Helen pulled up a holographic display. 3 years ago, when Earth joined the Council, these were the statistics. Average response time to emergencies, 21 days. Average casualties per Drex attack, 35,000 beings. Percentage of Outer Rim colonies reporting feeling unsafe, 94%. Council approval rating among member populations, 42%. She changed the display to current statistics. Today, average response time, 18 hours. Average casualties per attack, 1,200 beings. Percentage of Outer Rim colonies feeling unsafe, 11%. Council approval rating, 78%. Helen looked at Krillex. You say we have militarized the Council. I say we have made it effective. You say we have abandoned tradition. I say we have abandoned failure. You say we serve ourselves. I say we serve the people who elected all of us to protect them. Krillex's glow intensified. Numbers do not tell the whole story. You have changed who we are. The Council was founded on principles of patient diplomacy, of finding peaceful solutions, of respecting all voices equally. Under Earth's influence, we have become reactive and aggressive. We solve problems with force instead of wisdom. We solve problems that you could not solve at all, Helen replied sharply. And we still use diplomacy first. Admiral Blake's fleet has responded to over 300 incidents in 3 years. Do you know how many resulted in combat? 47. Less than 16%. The other 84% were resolved through deterrence and negotiation. But the threat of force made those negotiations possible. Ambassador Lauren of the Mirasian Hive spoke up. I must support Ambassador Price on this. My people have colonies in the Outer Rim. Before Earth joined the Council, we lived in fear. Now we feel safe. That is not a small thing. Gentora of the Thalon Republic stood next. Surprisingly, he also supported Earth. I was one of Earth's strongest critics when they first arrived. I admit this freely. But I cannot argue with results. My government's approval rating has increased 20 points since Earth's rapid response teams began protecting our territory. My people want this protection to continue. The debate continued for hours. Delegates from smaller species generally supported Earth. They had benefited most from the improved security and faster response times. Delegates from older, more established species were more skeptical. They worried about losing influence and tradition. Finally, Vexillar spoke. I think we are asking the wrong question. The question is not whether Earth has changed the Council. They clearly have. The question is whether those changes serve the Council's fundamental purpose. He pulled up the Council's founding charter, a document 12,000 years old. Our purpose, as stated in the charter, is to promote peace, protect member species, facilitate cooperation, and improve the lives of all beings in Council space. Everything else, all our traditions and procedures, are just tools to achieve those purposes. Vexillar looked around the chamber. Are we achieving our purposes better now than we were 3 years ago? I believe we are. More people are safe. More problems are solved quickly. More species are cooperating effectively. If our old tools were not working, then changing tools was the right choice. The vote on expanding the Rapid Response Fleet passed with 71% approval. Krillex and his supporters were outvoted. After the session, Vexillar found Krillex standing alone in one of the observation lounges, looking out at the stars. You think I am wrong, Krillex said without turning around. I think you are asking important questions, Vexillar replied carefully. We should be questioning whether Earth's influence is too strong. We should be worried about losing our identity. Those are valid concerns. But you voted against me. Because I believe results matter more than tradition. But that does not mean tradition has no value. Vexlar moved to stand beside Krillix. The council needs people like you asking difficult questions. We need skeptics who push back against change. Otherwise, we might change too much, too fast. Krillix finally turned to look at him. Do you really believe the humans have our best interests at heart? Or are we just useful to them? Both, Vexlar said. I think they genuinely want to help. I also think they are positioning themselves for long-term advantage. But those goals are not contradictory. They can help us while helping themselves. That is a very human way of thinking. Perhaps they are teaching us to think differently. Is that bad? Krillix did not answer. They stood in silence watching the stars. 6 months later, the first real test of Earth's influence came from an unexpected direction. The Kelzan Empire, a powerful aggressive species in the neighboring sector, demanded territorial concessions from the Council. They wanted control of 3 star systems in the border region. If the Council refused, the Kelzan threatened war. The old Council would have spent months negotiating, probably giving up the systems to avoid conflict. The Kelzan knew this, which was why they made such aggressive demands, but the Council had changed. Helen Price called an emergency session of the High Council. The Kelzan are testing us. They want to see if we will back down like we used to. What we do now will determine how every aggressive species treats us for the next decade. You want to fight them? Krillix asked. I want to make fighting us too expensive to be worth it, Helen replied. She pulled up fleet deployment plans. Admiral Blake has already positioned forces along the border. If the Kelzan attack, we will be ready. But we will also,